This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. On this episode, we have an outstanding guest that is doing quite a bit to create change in the fantasy sports industry and the fantasy football industry, particularly. From campus to Canton, it's Felix Sharpe. Welcome to the show, my man.
Kevin, I appreciate you having me. I've seen you've had a lot of esteemed guests on this show. So I don't know why you're bringing me on. It's probably hurting your reputation, but I guess that's something you're willing to do.
No, absolutely not. No, I'm thrilled to have you on here. You're certainly deserving. And obviously the campus to Canton brand and the movement is significant. So I want to obviously try to do my best to share that because people need to know about campus to Canton. It's pretty special. Can you share with the listeners and the viewers, that are maybe unfamiliar with your work and with campus to Canton, what that's all about and what your role is over there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm one of the co-founders of the company. Campus to Canton is essentially dynasty fantasy football, but it extends into the college ranks. So you have an NFL team and a college team, and you are playing college fantasy football and traditional NFL dynasty fantasy football. And when your college players declare for the NFL draft, they're added to your NFL team. I get to have value in these players that are at Fresno State and Eastern Michigan, in addition to the ones at Alabama and Georgia that are going to go to the NFL. I think, if you're a football fan, when I say football fan, like if you would go to Friday Night Lights, if you follow college football, if you follow recruiting, if you follow rookies, if you're into, evaluating players and seeing who you think are the best sleepers in a particular class. And I think campus to Canton leagues would be for you. Early on, Zach Wilson before he was a big deal. Jameson Williams at Ohio State before he transferred to Alabama. I was like, this dude has some juice. Ramondre Stevenson, Anthony Richardson was playing wide receiver in the Cotton Bowl against Oklahoma. And I said, that guy is going to be a freak one day. So it's, the value, I guess, for me as a player is really hitting on. You can get to say that you were first, on a player. I can't tell you how many times we've been talking about some guy, some player, and then, once the NFL draft season rolls around, you see Jordan Reed from ESPN or somebody from Pro Football Focus talking about that player that, we said months ago or even years ago as a freshman that we said that those players were undervalued. I mean, I don't want to belabor this point, but it just so happens that Dane Brugler, who, everybody respects Dane Brugler's work, he just posted a video earlier this week on Ashton Jeanty, the running back at Boise State. Now, he was a 3-star recruit. We liked him so much that Austin and Colin, colleagues of mine, they interviewed him before he ever played a down at Boise State. So, that's just really validating. In addition to you have these players rostered really for the entirety of their college and NFL careers, and it just adds another level to the game that's really fun if you love that evaluation piece, and then having a little action on Saturdays. It's a ton of fun.
For sure. It adds a level, but it adds another level to another level, another level. A lot of people play redraft, and they're excited when they first get to see who the new incoming players are, the rookies are, right? Whereas in Dynasty, like, you're more aware of those rookie players. So next level is Dynasty. You get more contact to those players in college, but then you got Devy that's going deep, right? And campus to Canton is essentially like Devy in some ways, but you're actually playing two different leagues at the same time. Pretty amazing stuff. We'll dive more into campus to Canton for sure. But let's roll back the tape a little bit. When it comes to your childhood, were you a big sports fan? Were sports a big part of your life growing up? Who were your favorite teams? Who were your favorite players as a kid?
Was I a big sports fan? I was probably about 5 or 6 years old, and we would drive past like a high school practicing in the summer, and I would tell my mom, I can play with them. Mom, I can play with them. So I played as early as I could, Northside Rocket football. Greg Jennings, Packers wide receiver and alum, and TJ Duckett over there, also an alum in Kalamazoo, Michigan. But yeah, I played early on. My uncle was a 12-year NFL veteran, 3-time Pro Bowler for the Arizona Cardinals, the St. Louis Cardinals, and then Arizona Cardinals, played against Lawrence Taylor and Harry Carson and those guys. So I can remember really early on just being infatuated with the game through him, and then on my own later on. Played in college. Brandon Carr, a teammate of mine, Brandon Carr, who infamously or famously had that Odell Beckham Jr. catch was made on him on Thursday Night Football when he was playing for the Cowboys. So Brian Kelly, who's now at LSU, started at Grand Valley. When he left, that's my college. When he left, he took my head coach with him to Notre Dame. So, I've been involved with the game in some capacity probably since I was 5 or 6 years old. And then favorite teams, I was growing up, Herman Moore, Barry Sanders were a big deal for the Detroit Lions, and I wore the number 84 because of Herman Moore, because of Randy Moss. In some capacity, I've been involved with the game and have loved the game, honestly, since I could remember.
From a fan perspective, what's the worst loss you ever experienced as a sports fan?
How much time do you got? Worst loss. Brandon Pettigrew should have had pass interference called him in that 2011 or 2014 playoff game in the Cowboys. The Calvin Johnson rule game, that was a touchdown. You're in Seattle. Bobby Wagner batting the ball out of the back of the end zone on that Monday Night Football game.
Oh, yeah.
When we played the Lions, that one Calvin almost had a touchdown. I can't count. I can count on two hands how many times Paul Edinger with the Bears kicked us out of a wild card playoff spot. I could go on and on. There are so many heartbreaking losses. Speaking about that 2000, I think it was 2014 or 2011, the Lions, we had the playoff game against the Cowboys. So people don't remember this, but that was the game that preceded the did Dez Bryant catch it game in Green Bay. They beat the Lions to get to that game. And Ndamukong Suh was an absolute beast in that game, harassing Tony Romo. We were up like 21-3 in that game. We were up. So if we would have won that game, we would have gone to Seattle the next game. At halftime, I called my friend Jason. I said, I was looking at tickets to Seattle to see, could we potentially go to the game? And so, other loss. How about Justin Tucker? I think this was 2014. Justin Tucker kicking a 61-yard field goal on Thursday Night Football, playing the Ravens at home in Ford Field. Still a minute and 30 left. I'm like, all right, Matthew Stafford's he's gonna drive down here. Immediately throws an interception to James Ihedebo. Game over. I'm just like, there are so many. There are so many losses like that. That I could go on and on.
I love that. I love that passion, man. I love that. You can go back to last year, right? Detroit, blowing that huge lead against San Francisco. That was
house money, baby.
Oh,
house
my
money.
Gosh. Yeah,
house money.
True.
No. We were playing with house money. You got to understand. I went through 0-16.
Yeah.
So San Francisco, the NFC Championship game. It was house money. No, that probably doesn't even make the top 20 losses that I faced. I was surprised that we were in that game as late as we were in that game and taking a
looked good. That fourth quarter. That second half. Every single thing that could have gone wrong went wrong. So I'm sure you probably were prepared for that at halftime, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
How about your favorite moment as a sports fan?
That's not how fans operate, Kevin. We live in the losses, okay?
That's true.
I can't think of a favorite. No, there's no wins that stand. I'm sure that there's some if I could think about it. But to be honest, even in my playing career, it's the losses that stand out more than the wins. I guess, winning the division this year. Actually, in 2011, this is after going 0-16 in 2008, okay? So that 2011 team, great defensive line, Cliff Averill, Ndamukong Suh, Corey Williams, Kyle Vanden Bosch, probably one of my favorite all-time lines coming from the Arizona Cardinals, just added a relentlessness to the team. We were clinching a playoff spot at home against the San Diego Chargers. And I remember, I mean, they went deep the first play. It was like a 60-yard touchdown first play. You couldn't hear in the stadium. Phillip Rivers was getting harassed. We absolutely, blew them out. So probably clinching that game, winning that game, clinching a playoff spot after going 0-16 just, 3 years before, that was a big deal. I mean, during my childhood, we were like 0-30-something at Green Bay, just never won in Green Bay. So, once we broke that streak, I mean, there's been a couple we always beat Green Bay and Green Bay now, but I mean, we just grew up knowing that you could check that off as a loss. You know what's a big loss? How about in 1998 at pick 20? The Detroit Lions take Terry Fair out of Tennessee, and the next pick is Randy Moss. How about that for a loss? That's a loss.
That's a loss. That is a devastating sports moment for sure. Man, I love your passion. So professionally, you're an attorney, right?
I am.
How was that something you always wanted to do, is go to law school?
I only wanted to be two things growing up, and that's a wide receiver for the Detroit Lions and a practicing litigator. I mean, obviously, you can see I can talk, so it's very natural. But I've only wanted to be those two things. I watched a lot of court television shows growing up, and or my mom did, and so I always saw like this figurehead speaking with authority, and so I think I gravitated towards that, and I always wanted to be. I mean, there's all types of attorneys. There's transactional lawyers. There's folks that do deals. But to me, a real lawyer is somebody who was in the courtroom, like Brian Steele in Georgia. If you're watching this Young Thug trial down in Atlanta, that trial right now is crazy. And I'm going to get nerdy here, but yeah, I always wanted to be a litigator. And I mean, again, since I was very little.
Has that career path been pretty fulfilling for you? Is it everything you wanted it to be?
I'm an athlete by nature, so having an adversary on the other side, someone that you could beat, it brings out the competitiveness in you, especially when you are competing against people you don't like. You're competing against law firms that rejected you coming out of law school. You're fighting for your client. So it's corporate sports. It's the corporate sports arena. So I would say so.
I love that. No, I love that passion. When along the line did you discover fantasy sports, or when did you start playing fantasy football?
I remember in 2009, I was an intern, and I was an intern at a job that had a lot of downtime, and I remember getting on ESPN. Was it 2009? I graduated in 2009. So it was probably 2005 or 2006. And I remember getting online and just seeing what a mock draft was on ESPN. And I was like, I'll see what this is. And I remember I took Willis McGahee ahead of Brian Westbrook, and all of these anonymous people in the chat, just like, oh, he doesn't know what he's doing, blah, 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 blah. That was probably my first exposure to it. And then when I graduated college, I was working for the state government in Michigan, and we had a league there. That was probably my first, normal exposure to fantasy football.
What was it that you liked the most? What hooked you?
I mean, I like football. I like football, so it was just another way to interact with the game, to be around the game, to view the game in a different way. I mean, if you like the game like I do, having a different angle to watch the game is really fulfilling, which is the same way how I feel about, campus to Canton leagues. Like, I was passionate about college football. What I liked about fantasy is just it gave me a different way to watch the game, and that's kind of the way campus to Canton gives me a different way to watch the game. I always liked college football. 1998 Michigan National Championship, Brian Greasy, Charles Woodson, Heisman Trophy winner on that team. That's the year that the Heisman Trophy finalists were Ryan Leaf, Randy Moss, Peyton Manning, and Charles Woodson. So that was a great year. And then the following year was like Donovan McNabb, Ricky Williams getting booed or Donovan McNabb getting booed because he was taken by the Eagles. So it was a great 2-year run to be watching football. Anyway, campus to Canton leagues did the same thing for me. Like I already enjoyed college football, but now, I'm watching with a different perspective on Saturday because I have these players playing in games. So when I got a guy going off for 230 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns and I get 60 points, or there was 2 years ago where Malik Cunningham was now a wide receiver for the Patriots on a Thursday night game. And I want to say I cannot remember who it was against. Might have been West Virginia. Malik Cunningham had like 6 touchdowns, 200 yards rushing, 300 yards passing. He had like 3 touchdowns rushing, 4 touchdowns passing. You getting 70 points from one player. Just understanding the college fantasy game is totally different. It's just really, really exciting to watch the game that way. And again, especially when, nobody's talking about a player like Carson Beck at Georgia in the offseason of 2023. Why?
Yeah.
Because he was backing up Stetson Bennett the year prior and didn't have any starting experience. But when you watch, the reps of him actually playing, like, ooh, this guy's a pocket passer who likes to throw the ball downfield. He's very aggressive. I'm going to get him in my freshman and supplemental drafts. And then now, one off season later, he's projected to be the number 1 overall pick. I mean, it just really allows you to have some equity in the players, or an emotional investment in the players, very similarly to the way fantasy football or traditional fantasy football does. But the thing is in our game, nobody's talking about these players when we are looking at their high school tape. We're trying to identify who's going to make the jump to be an NFL prospect.
Yeah.
So it's just really, that's a very long answer, but that's kind of why I love fantasy.
No, I love it. Now, when it comes to like high school recruiting and high school content, high school, scouting, like what are the best resources out there? Like how do you get prepared for those incoming freshmen?
Yeah, well, we actually publish a freshman guide, which is just like any rookie draft guide, except from the college perspective. So we watch and evaluate film, and we have athletic testing that our recruiting team puts together. You can go to campus2canton.com, and if you want to see, Kevin, you're up there in Washington. If you want to see Denzel Boston is a freakishly athletic wide receiver who didn't get to play behind Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk, and Roma Dunze last year, but he's going to play this year. If you want to look up his athletic testing and his comparables, you can go do that at campus2canton.com. If you want to go read his profile in our freshman guide, you can go do that. We have a lot of people might see the player comparison charts where you see a dotted graph, and that's C in the corner of that graph. Those are charts from campus2canton.com. So even players who are not playing in our league still find our content valuable. But when you ask about where do we get the content from, or where do we get the evaluations from for freshmen coming in, we get them from ourselves. Now we rely on the legacy recruiting databases like 24/7 Sports, On3, but we also we have our own tiers and evaluations and profile write-ups for all of these guys. We released the freshman guide. This is our third one. March of 2024 was our third one. March 1st. We release it March 1st every year, and so we get it from watching and from evaluating the players. Case in point, Quinshawn Judkins from Ole Miss, another 3-star recruit from Mississippi or Alabama, I can't remember which. We highlighted him. We highlighted him in our freshman guide. And for most people, he's either the first or the second back in the 2023 and the 2024 draft class. What's funny is in the same draft class, there's a player named Emmanuel Henderson, who was, according to the Legacy Recruiting Services, was the number 2 overall back. But we looked at his tape and said, this guy's 6'2", 190 pounds. He's not built like a running back. He doesn't play like a running back. Now, he's a wide receiver at Alabama. There's no chance he's coming out next year. So we write up the freshman guide. We tell you, who we like that's undervalued, who we think is overrated. But to answer that question, where do we get our evaluations from? We have a recruiting team. You can catch out the official on the Campus to Canton podcast. We write a freshman guide every single year, and we are in the dirt, in the mud, so we get it from ourselves.
Fascinating. I love that. So when it comes to playing fantasy, do you play in any redraft leagues, or is it just all Campus to Canton these days?
I haven't played in a redraft league, other than the Scott Fish Bowl, and probably since maybe 2015 or earlier. Wow. So it's funny because I thought that the community had gravitated away from redraft leagues, but I guess that is still the most popular form of fantasy football. I really like the evaluation and development piece of fantasy football. So I haven't played in a redraft league, and I honestly can't remember how long.
That's awesome. So when it comes to leagues that you play in, is there one person that's your biggest rival, one person that you just got to beat when you face them?
Well, there are 6 original co-founders at the company, and it's fun to be in leagues with them and to beat them, those guys, my colleagues. So I would have to say them.
How about scoring settings? Like, what are you used to playing with in Campus to Canton? Is it a big variety, just like any other, like Dynasty or whatnot? Or are there certain settings, formats that you love the most?
Yeah, there's it's generally the scoring settings are generally the same as your traditional NFL Dynasty league. However, in college there are 134 FBS teams. There's a lot more roster space there. So generally, your Campus to Canton, your college side roster, you have those players that you think are going to be NFL players. Your Rome Odunze's, your Marvin Harrison Jr.'s, your Drake May and Caleb Williams, those level of players. And then you have some fringe guys. And then you have some guys who are just straight up college fantasy guys who might play in the Mountain West or the ACC or the AAC, or the MAC, who aren't going to be they aren't going to be NFL players, but they're going to get a lot of points when, Ball State and some directional school will play each other. It's going to be a high scoring game. So anyway, you have 45-man rosters to account for that variance in performance from all the different players. So I think in Dynasty 30 might be the average, and it's a little bit deeper on the college side. But I'll tell you the setting that I probably enjoy the most is that you can go triple super flex on the college side in leagues just because there are so many quarterbacks. So you can start, you can have Jaden Daniels and Drake May and some guy at Baylor. Shout out to Daquan Finn, transfer from Toledo, who's going to be at Baylor this year. You can have, your favorite, your Fresno State quarterback or your UConn quarterback on their scoring also. So that I'd say the fact that you can go three deep in your starting lineup at quarterback, that's probably that's not a standard thing. That's just something that, in leagues that I'd really like to have, is where you can start, up to 3 QBs. But generally speaking, the scoring is very similar. However, the performances are different. It's not uncommon to see a guy go for 237 yards receiving, or have the game that I told you about with Malik Cunningham rushing for 200, throwing for 300, scoring, 7 touchdowns. Those types of performances can come, at any given time. So that kind of adds to the excitement, and you have these higher scoring games.
For sure. Now, when you got a Campus to Canton league, is the pro side of things weighted more when it comes to just the legacy and the glory, or are they kind of just both treated equally?
They are. So generally speaking, in all the leagues I play in, the money is weighted evenly. So there's a prize for the college side and a prize for the NFL side. But I think as players dive into it, you really want to win the college side. You really want to show that you know that game, because more or less everybody knows the NFL game.
Yeah.
and everybody knows the NFL game, but can you find that value so you can win on the college side and win? And to be honest with you, it's you want to win both sides and be the king of C's, king of C's, and win both sides. That's when you show that you're a real top dog. I had two chances last year. To win both sides, and I didn't pull down either of them. Very upset with myself. But
now I would imagine, though, on a league that's 10 years down the road, that NFL side would be weighted more because you created it based off of your college scouting, right? I mean, that NFL team eventually is all the players that you got when you were recruiting, down below, right?
Well, all the players you might not have gotten also, It's different. What's different is in a traditional dynasty league, you might have 5 picks and you can trade them. In a campus to Canton league, you could have a draft class. You might have 1 player. You might have 7. You might have 3. So there's a variance there because if you didn't develop that pipeline, you might go from, you could be in trouble going from year to year. And generally speaking, I would say, speaking to that, because you could have real holes on your NFL team. But I've noticed that on the NFL side in campus to Canton leagues, those rosters, the rosters that end up winning the championship, they don't always look as robust as a traditional dynasty league roster that wins a championship. And by that, I mean, and obviously we do Superflex on the NFL side too, you might have a team that wins the championship that didn't have a second quarterback, or the only running back they had was Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs, before he played in NFL Down, I was comparing him to Aaron Jones coming out of Dalton, Georgia. And then he went to my favorite team. It was like the best of. It was so good.
I love it.
It was one of my favorite players coming out in 2020. So So I'm not sure exactly what you mean by weighted, but generally speaking, your NFL team, it may look a little bit scrappier in comparison to a traditional NFL dynasty team. Again, because you don't have just a set amount of draft picks. You have to develop that pipeline. So one year you might have 4 players go over to your NFL team. I'll just give you an example. So Devontae Walker, who's now with the Baltimore Ravens, he was with North Carolina last year, played half the season because of some suspension issues. But the year prior, he had been at Kent State. Okay. He had been at Kent State in the MAC. Everybody saw, hey, this guy's a freak of an athlete. He's going to end up transferring. Lo and behold, Kent State's head coach went to go be Deion Sanders' offensive coordinator at Colorado. And Devontae Walker transfers to North Carolina to be with Drake May. Well, this guy's going to tear up, college football. And more or less in the games he played, he did do well. He met expectations. But then, doesn't perform as well as we thought in the combine, slips in the draft. That's a guy that we would have projected for day 2 NFL draft capital that ends up falling to day 3. Same thing for a player like Braylon Allen at Wisconsin. 17-year-old freshman, runs for over 1,000 yards at Wisconsin, a program that's produced Monte Ball, Jonathan Taylor, Melvin Gordon, James White, like a running back legacy. So we would have assumed you could lock him in to day 1 or day 2 NFL draft capital. No, NFL, he falls to the 4th round. So, you may think that, here's another, Jaden Daniels, Arizona State transfer to LSU, was an afterthought. Last year, the expectation was that he would split reps with Garrett Nussmeier, who's going to be the starter this year. Like you can evaluate players and then things happen that you just don't expect. If you're paying attention to college football, you wouldn't have expected Braylon Allen to fall in the draft like he did. Even a player like N'Keal Harry, you saw him perform really good as a freshman. Rondale Moore at Purdue performed really good, great as a freshman, and had these excellent NFL careers, and they're just not NFL fits. So all that to say is your draft classes that you're moving from the college side to the NFL side, they kind of vary in strength from year to year because of those fluctuations that I just mentioned.
For sure. No, that's crazy. So formats wise, though, you Fantrax is that still the only place to play college football?
Fantrax still the only place to play college fantasy football. My fingers are crossed that with the college football video game, that we might have some renewed interest in the sport, and that players themselves will become brands, since the players' names are are actually in the game. And so my hope is that in the coming years we will see more interest, not only in college football, but for people to be interested in the individual players, and maybe we'll get a renewed interest, or maybe the first big wave of interest in college fantasy football in the next 2 to 3 years or so.
It'd be nice to see that on more platforms. Obviously, nothing against Fantrax. I mean, keep doing what you're doing. That's wonderful. But yeah, I mean, you'd love to see that on Sleeper and on obviously Yahoo and ESPN and CBS and all those sites as well. So when it comes to creating content and diving into this Campus to Canton project, when was that, and what inspired that?
So in 2020, during the pandemic, and I feel like you hear a lot of content creators started during the pandemic, we started a podcast called The Devy Debate. We wanted to talk about college football. Myself, Matt Bruning, and Austin Nace. Austin and his friend Colin Decker we were playing in Campus to Canton leagues at the time, and Austin and his friend Colin were just secretly gathering the domain name and the social media channels for Campus to Canton, which is the name of the format. They kind of mentioned it to me about coming on, and I came on, and that was in December of 2020, and we ended up launching in March of 2021. And it's been a great ride since then. We've got a ton of customers in our Discord. It's funny because we monetized early. We didn't know if people would find value in our product, but lo and behold, it's been a good business venture. We've expanded our team to about 30 or so since then, between writers, editors, and just podcasting. So our team we have a recruiting team, we have a CFF team, we have a pretty robust venture there at the website for those who are interested in college fantasy in general, whether that be traditional Devy or CFF, which is like NFL redraft, or Campus Canton, which is what I do. So it's been a great ride since March of 2021.
And the biggest difference between Devy and Campus Canton, again, is that Devy, those guys aren't playing, right? And you're not playing a college football league with the Devy roster.
Yeah, in Devy, a couple of years ago, you would have saw Saquon Barkley go off against USC in the Rose Bowl, and you say, hey, I like that guy. The following year, you draft him in your Devy league, but then he doesn't score any points for you until he's actually declares for the NFL draft, and he's drafted by an NFL team. And Campus to Canton, if you would have had Saquon Barkley on your roster, he would have scored those 30 points for you, and you would have won a head-to-head matchup against somebody, and Saquon Barkley would have led you to the college side fantasy championship, or I'm trying to think of who are the running back, or Bijan Robinson, or Jahmyr Gibbs, or any of these rookies that you're actually scoring points. So I mentioned liking Jahmyr Gibbs. I think I took Jahmyr Gibbs in the 22nd round of a league, and I really liked him. I really liked his versatility coming. Kirby Smart at Georgia did not offer him. Ends up going to Georgia Tech. Spends his Kirby Smart did not offer him. I was super excited to see Jahmyr Gibbs play. He was injured the first game. The first game that he actually played was the second game of Georgia Tech season. They're playing against UCF, and he nearly takes the opening kickoff back for a touchdown. His first touch in college football ever, and that kind of, and it was just a great versatile player used in the passing game and running game under Coach Jeff Collins there. I have a habit of going on tangents.
I love it.
Because I forgot what
you're doing. You love what you're doing.
Yeah.
You love it. You love it.
Oh yeah.
No.
But, go ahead.
No, it's just wonderful. What's been the most rewarding part of this experience for you, getting in the fantasy industry and creating such a cool product?
I think the most rewarding thing has been building a business. and not expecting that that's what you would be doing when you started, and it becoming evident that that is what you're doing. We don't have the largest following out there as far as social media goes, but we have our fans are super loyal, and despite the fact that college fantasy is not prevalent, I think that we've proven that there's an actual market for it, that we've proven that there's an actual market for it. If we can do the business that we're doing, again, with, $800 in startup costs and no knowledge about how to build a website, if we can turn that in 3 years to what we've built now, then that tells me that there actually is a market for college fantasy and that people do gravitate towards it. So I think that proof of concept would be the most rewarding thing in the last 3 years or so.
I love it, and part of that is getting the word out. Obviously, you guys have had a big presence at the Fantasy Football Expo last couple years. Talk to me about that experience, getting to meet people in the industry and spreading the word about this great game.
Well, our first year at the Expo, we shot a commercial. We dressed up like Mormon boys, and we went around asking people if we could talk to them about Campus to Canton. We actually shot a commercial doing that stuff out there, or whatever that pavilion is called that with all the grass and stuff there at the Expo.
Yeah.
So I think early on, that would have been 2021-ish. So it was about maybe 2022. I think it was 2021 though, where we just wanted to get our name out there. And we were able to make a lot of good contacts. As a matter of fact, one of the contacts that we made there was Matt Deutsch, who was formerly the director of content over at the fantasy content at XM. He ends up starting his own brand, and we were one of the shows that he had on his platform there. So got to work with him and did NFL draft content with Lisa Ann. I mean, it's been a great ride in our little silo. I know we're kind of like the stepchild of fantasy content out here, but we'll take it. We'll take our little piece of the table.
Well, I love it because obviously it's a very unique niche. It's taking over as it is when you think when a lot of people are thinking about Debbie these days, they're thinking about Campus to Canton leagues because it just makes sense to put those guys to action, right? You want to compete on that college level too. And there's definitely some people out there that are, advocates for college fantasy football, and the best is definitely yet to come. Looking forward to a bright future for Campus to Canton. Let's dive into just a few rapid fire questions. I'll just throw out some questions. What do you enjoy most about what you're doing in the industry right now?
It's building something slowly, having it grow organically. You have to be patient. You have to be consistent. You have to continue to water it. But if you just do it, you will start to see the results. And I think it's just doing that quietly has been the most rewarding.
Who are your favorite prospects out there? Young players on your rosters that you just can't wait to see get into the NFL one day.
Well, Carson Beck was one because I was kind of on him before folks were really talking about him. And I mean, you could be watching this and you don't know who Carson Beck is because he hadn't declared for the NFL draft yet. But he's projected to be the number one overall pick in next year's draft. I would say watch out for there is a wide receiver / tight end at South Carolina named Nick Harbor who just ran a 10-1-2 100-meter dash time. He's 6'4", 215 pounds. He's built like DK Metcalf. Not very shifty, but just a super explosive athlete, one of the more explosive athletes that we've seen in some time. And his quarterback, if there's going to be a next Anthony Richardson, you're talking about, again, 6'4", 240 pounds, can run, not as powerful as Anthony Richardson, but probably a more developed passer in his second year at South Carolina. His name is Lenoris Sellers. You can't miss him because he wears the old school goggles like Horace Grant. Well, I was going to say, yes, like Eric Dickerson or Horace Grant underneath his helmet. and he's the quarterback for the South Carolina Gamecocks. So those are two. And I think I gotta go with them, with definitely Sellers, because if he lives up to his expectations, he's going to have a really, really high ceiling.
Love it. So consuming content over the years, who are your favorite analysts of all time? Who are the people that kind of really got you fired up about fantasy?
I mean, I got to go with Matt Waldman. I mean, I've been listening to Matt Waldman for years, and in the last 2 years, I've recorded a podcast where we go over prospects. And we were talking about. So I don't even know why I didn't mention this name. Michael Penix Jr. was a player that I liked since his time at Indiana, and so Matt and I had been talking about him for the last couple of years, and obviously he goes on to become the number 8 overall pick in this year's draft. So I gotta say Waldman. I love I think like everybody, I listened to the couch for a long time with Sigmund Bloom early on. So definitely those two at the top. But to be honest with you now, I love my boys Austin and Colin, the Campus Life Show, because I like hearing names that I have not heard before to go look them up myself. And that's what I love about the college game. So a lot of the content that I listen to now is college related content, because I do want to go hear perspectives on players that I have not evaluated myself and go figure out, hey, does this player have the juice or not?
I love that approach. That's awesome. What are your favorite hobbies and activities outside of fantasy sports?
Content creation is a lot. I'm into entrepreneurship in general. So, just bought a rental property, my first one. So just handling and managing that. And then when I'm consistent, it's really just, staying in the gym and staying consistent there. So between that and my kids who you saw coming in here, and then work, two businesses, two small businesses between the content and rental, and then staying in the gym and my kids. I mean, that's enough right there.
That'll fill your calendar for sure. What's your favorite all-time TV show?
He's got to go with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, right? You got to go with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Yeah, I don't watch a ton of television, but I do. I'll tell you this: I like The Handmaid's Tale, and I'm waiting for the end of that show. I had an old girlfriend turn me on to that show, and it stuck. So
nice. How about an all-time favorite movie?
Oh, I have a few. Oh shoot! What's The Last Samurai is one. Tom Cruise in that movie. I love The Last Samurai. And then what is the musical with Andre 3000? Idlewild. That's one that nobody has seen, with Outkast, and Paula Patton is in it. Idlewild, the musical there, the Prohibition era musical with Big Boy and Andre 3000. That's one of my favorites too. And of course, I love the Batman trilogy. I love Heath Ledger's character, his bad guy in that one.
Yeah, hard to beat those for sure. How about an all-time favorite sports movie?
All-time favorite sports movie. Can we go Any Given Sunday? I feel like Any Given Sunday. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, why not? How about a favorite artist, band, musician?
It's funny. Jamie Foxx is in Any Given Sundays. He's Willie Beeman there, and I've seen Jamie Foxx a couple of times in concert live at the Fox Theater in Detroit, at the Joe Louis Arena in Detroit. Didn't even exist anymore. And I remember one concert that I went to. He did an hour of comedy, stand-up comedy, and then an hour or an hour plus of music. So I would have to say Jamie Foxx is up there. Maxwell is up there. Yeah, I'll go with those two.
That's great. Yeah, Jamie Foxx is. I mean, just talent wise is just off the charts.
Oh yeah,
right. I love it. What are you most grateful for at this time?
I am most grateful for the life that I'm living now. I'm kind of pursuing multiple passions that I have, and I'm able to do it. Even getting through the struggle and the journey of it is rewarding. So that's what I would say.
I love that. I love that perspective. What advice do you have for people that are looking to get more involved in the fantasy space, or more people that want to get involved in diving deeper into campus to Canton type content?
So to get involved in this fantasy space, if that means being a content creator, just go ahead and write or produce, figure it out. Just if you have something to say it. Don't wait until you have, you might have no followers. And that's everybody that you see in fantasy right now, whether the biggest person, the smallest person, they started with zero. Okay. They started with zero following, zero, anything. And so just go out there and create and say something. And to be honest with you, don't worry about whether or not you are amassing a large audience. If you have a video that gets 10, 15 views, that's 10, 15 people that are paying attention to what it is that you have to say, and be thankful for that. And then just be consistent and keep going. Again, just keep going. So just start. Don't wait to, you don't need to have a business plan or insurance to start a podcast or start writing. You can have a Substack right now. Just put your content out there, turn the light on, turn the microphone on. You don't need a fancy mic. You don't need, you just need your voice. Just put it out there and take it one step at a time, and just keep going. Just keep being consistent, and you'll level up. And for anybody, who's interested in starting or doing a Campus to Canton League, you can go to campustocanton.com. You can hit me up on Twitter. On Twitter, my DMs are open. But then somebody told me that they DM'd me a while ago, and it never showed up. I had to open some other inbox, and it was a message in there with a whole bunch of spam from sex bots on Twitter. Twitter is crazy right now. So I say that my DMs are open, and they are, but I don't know exactly where your message is going to go. So. But yeah, you can DM me on Twitter, but check out campustocanton.com.
I love it. Felix, is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to share before we close things out?
Campus to Canton on YouTube, Campus to Canton, wherever you get your podcast. Check us out. If you liked what it is that you heard today and you're interested in it, either, find us there. We have daily content on the podcast feed and on the YouTube page. It's growing. So check us out.
There we go. And tell the listeners, viewers, where to find you.
At Sharpe Review. That's Sharpe with an E. At Sharpe Review on Twitter. And you can find me on that Campus to Canton podcast feed, Campus to Canton live on the Campus to Canton YouTube page on Wednesday nights between 8:30 and 9:30 or so. We'll be live tomorrow. So
there we go. And it's going to be college football season before we know it. Obviously, lots of fun stuff ahead. Honor to have you on here. Privilege to have you on here. So much fun listening to this and hearing your story with Campus to Canton. It's such an intriguing product. I can see why diehards and people that love the game of football and want to know more about the players that are entering college and entering the league. Where they want to, why they would want to get more information. It's so exciting. I love everything you got going on. Best of luck to you in 2024. And I guess we won't be seeing you in Canton probably, but if we do, I'll look forward to it, man.
Appreciate it, Kevin. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.